Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison. I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising as we delve back into the issue that we have been profiling over the last year, and that is human contact with non-human intelligences and non-human technology, referred to as UFOs, now unidentified anomalous phenomena, basically the extraterrestrial phenomenon, which is now percolating out into the global community, given the fact that the US government last December legislated that not only do these phenomena exist, technologies of unknown origin, non-human technologies, non-human intelligences, but that all the government agencies and contracting corporations are mandated to turn over their information that they've gathered essentially since the end of the Second World War on the UFO, ET, NHI, UAP phenomenon, depending on how you like to refer to it. New Paradigm Institute has been right in the middle of this mix, led by Daniel Sheehan, the president of New Paradigm Institute. I've been here in Washington, D.C. Danny's here in town, working with the Congress on various aspects of whistleblower legislation that is up. But before we dive into that, the point that I want to make as we begin our program today is a very exciting development. And that is that Russ Coulthart, who is probably the leading mainstream journalist in this space of UAP disclosure, has a weekly show on News Nation called Reality Check. And on July 24th, only a few days ago, he released his latest interview with a gentleman named Michael Masters, who's a PhD in biological anthropology. He teaches at Montana Technical University. And what is interesting is he's just co-authored a paper, a peer-reviewed paper with Harvard colleagues that has been published that marks the first time that this domain of extraterrestrials and what he calls crypto-terrestrials has been peer-reviewed by scientific colleagues and been published. Harvard colleagues, no less. And this is really a breakthrough because up to this point in time, only a few years ago, it was absolutely verboten for anything like this to even be talked about, let alone peer-reviewed and coming out. And that's why, innovative university like Ubiquity University was the first one to establish a extraterrestrial studies program. These things never start in the center. They always start in the margins and work in. But more and more, these discussions are going mainstream. And so this impetus that was started really in December of 2017, when Lue Elizondo, who had been the head of a UAP task force in the Pentagon, took this information to the New York Times with those TikTok videos. There's been a momentum unleashed that is now moving, I would say, in an accelerated way into the global conversation. So we can take some solace that what we talk about on Humanity Rising is going into the global conversation at a pace that before too long is going to change the face of academia and politics and human affairs, because the consequences of taking in the information that we are not alone is changing everything in our world. It's literally exploding our temporal, spatial coordinates. Spatially, because for the first time, all of us, all at the same time, are being forced to expand our notion of identity outside our little planet into the cosmos and realize that we're being visited by beings, not only from different star systems, but from different dimensions and temporally, because we're taking in that even though we're focused right now on retrieved craft and retrieved bodies and evidence that they're here now, what this is calling up is the fact that they've been here for some time. And not only have they been here for thousands and thousands of years, the collective memory contained in all of our religious traditions are that they interceded in our evolution and enhanced our capacities, both for good and for ill. And so that also is coming into play. And that's the subject of the article that has just been peer-reviewed. Crypto-terrestrials are an understanding of the NHI, non-human intelligence phenomenon, that asserts that they've been here all along. And they've been essentially hidden, therefore the term crypto rather than extraterrestrials. They're crypto-terrestrials. They've been here all along. And that one of the things that is also getting opened up in this article in a very powerful way is that we have to completely rethink this notion of human evolution of, Paleolithic stone tool users for 250, 60,000 years. And then about 10,000 years ago, we went through the Neolithic Revolution. Then we start to build up and we get civilization about 5,000 years ago, and here we are. What Michael Masters and his colleagues are bringing into play is that not only are these crypto-terrestrials a very viable hypothesis, but that the longevity of human evolution goes back much farther than we can possibly imagine. And they bring to bear evidence, for example, that they found in Ukraine, buried a quarter of a mile underneath the surface of the earth, a perfectly constructed wheel that dates from 3 million years ago. They have found evidence in South Africa, wood, that was part of some kind of a machine that dates from 500,000 years ago. The ruins of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey go back 11, 12,000 years. Massive, massive stone pillars by the hundreds that are 20 to 30 to 40 tons each. And there are hundreds of them. 7,000 years before the pyramids. They've just unearthed a finding at the bottom of Lake Michigan in the United States that they think dates as far back as Göbekli Tepe. And they found inscriptions on the stones way down under the water now of mastodons that lived 15, 20,000 years ago in the North American continent. So I'm going to put this link up to this interview in the chat, because what's beginning to percolate out are the larger dimensions of disclosure. And again, even though we're focused on an evidence-based inquiry that's basically about Washington and the Defense Department and the intelligence community about this phenomenon, One of the things that New Paradigm Institute and Ubiquity University have partnered is to how do we generate this larger conversation that begins with the evidence, but is going to radically reframe everything that we think we know about who we are as human beings, how we relate to the larger cosmic order of things, and what are the fundamental orienting attitudes that we as a human race now need to take and shape in order to embrace this new paradigm. That's why we're the New Paradigm Institute, that will allow a fuller expression of our humanity within a cosmic context. It's a very exciting time to be alive, to be working on these kinds of issues, because they are going to allow us a portal through which we can completely transform human behavior and the human relationship to the larger ecology. One of the impediments to full disclosure is the fact that people inside the military and inside the intelligence communities, not only of the United States, but in countries abroad, are not protected in divulging what they know. Because remember, the UFO phenomenon was the most closely held secret in the United States government for over 80 years. And that legacy repression and cover-up, those forces are still alive and well and working to inhibit disclosure. But there's upwards of 30 to 40 whistleblowers or people inside those communities that want to testify, but they need to be protected. And so that's what Danny Sheehan, who you all know because he's been on Humanity Rising many times, and our team have been working on, and was the principal reason why Danny came back to Washington over the last week, is to begin to really fine-tune with various congressional representatives and others on some legislation that is percolating now inside the Congress to protect whistleblowers, which, if achieved, will open a floodgate of more information about this extraordinarily important and, up to this point, mysterious phenomenon. So, Danny, please join us, and welcome to Humanity Rising. I'm sure you'll have some comments on what I was discussing about Ross and Michael Masters, but he's also here to talk about the latest developments in Washington with regards to disclosure and the various legislative initiatives that are underway, including the whistleblower initiative. So, Danny, welcome, and I turn the program over to you.
Terrific. Thanks, Jim. As Jim has pointed out, that this entire issue of what has been referred to historically, at least during the lives of everyone who's watching here today, has been referred to as the UFO issue, that there are these unidentified flying objects that have been noted flying around in our atmosphere, and flying around, as it turns out, diving into the oceans and traveling at over 200 miles an hour under the water. This is now starting to become widely recognized by the population around the world, because people have cell phones and cameras and are taking pictures and videos of these. And it's putting pressure on the government, military, and intelligence experts who have been monitoring this phenomenon for at least 80 years. And that what's happening now is there has been this impetus that has come out of the military intelligence community itself as of December of 2017, when not only Lue Elizondo, but also Christopher Mellon, who was the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence under both the Clinton administration and also the George Bush Jr. or George W. Bush administration. They are the ones that brought the video tapes, the gun camera videos of the Tic Tac and the gimbal in the fast walker. They have 3 different sets of videos taken by the F-18 Super Hornet jet fighters that basically fly off from the aircraft carriers, the nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, have been monitoring these flights of these vehicles and have been timing them, how fast they go. They've been tracking them at up to 40,000 miles an hour, inside our atmosphere with no friction. They have been timing them going 20,000 miles an hour at a straight line and then turning a direct 90-degree angle and coming out of the 90-degree turn at 20,000 miles an hour, coming down from over 80,000 feet, which is sort of officially space, outer space, down to the surface of our oceans in 0.7 of 1 second, and stopping dead stop. That's 600 G's force on them, and then going under the water and traveling at over 200 miles an hour and being monitored under the water by our nuclear submarines with radar. So this phenomenon has been going on for some time, for at least the last 80 years, and it has broken into the consciousness of the American people and other people around the world under the rubric of the UFO phenomenon. And it has been assumed since the very earliest stages of this process that these are extraterrestrial, that they come from some other star system somewhere, ostensibly in our galaxy, but perhaps even from greater distances, because they appear to have been able to conquer the issue of superluminal flight. That is, that they are able to transit from whatever star system or planet around a star in our galaxy or elsewhere to our Earth faster than the speed of light. And our existing state of understanding physics tells us that that can't happen, that there are theories that have been developed by Einstein and Heisenberg and others who have postulated that a piece of mass, no matter how little, even as small as an atom of a particular element, cannot in fact move faster than the speed of light, because the density of the mass becomes so intense as it approaches the speed of light that it can't break that barrier. It appears, with regard to the UFO phenomenon, that this isn't true, that in fact other civilizations that exist out in our galaxy that have existed for from 6 to as much as 8 billion years, longer than our Earth in our star system has existed, may well have discovered the secret of physics that enable them to transit from there to here. Now, what has been the fact over the last 80 years that has been tracking 77 years basically since Roswell, the famous crashed saucer in July of 1947 at Roswell, but some earlier references to go back to as early as 1945, which have to do with craft themselves. That's setting aside for a moment the issue of what they call the Foo Fighters, that were these balls of light that were seen, during World War II by the planes But the bottom line is, at least over the last 77 years since the recovery of an actual crash vehicle at Roswell, have been discussed as being extraterrestrial, because the life forms that they recovered from the crashed vehicle or vehicles at Roswell were recognized right away to be not human. And it's interesting because there was this immediate kind of sense on the part of everyone who was encountering them, even though they were keeping it secret, that they were not of this world. And therefore, the logical consequence of that was that people concluded that they must be from another star system. And we believe that's a correct assumption. The question that arises is, how long have they been coming here? And we have the recent records of them coming here since 1945, with the information that came from Colonel Corso, Philip Corso, leaving a little 8mm home movie that he took of himself, which he left for his grandchildren in his will after he passed away, that was to be made available to them, informing them about this experience that he had at White Sands Proving Grounds as a range officer back in June of 1945. So we have that record as one of the earliest kind of official records of government persons. He was a U.S. military, U.S. Army range officer at the Yucca Flats at Alamogordo, where we were testing the initial nuclear or atomic bomb. And that entire period, that entire 77-year period from Roswell, and even going back earlier, the virtually 80-year period since 1945, this phenomenon, the UFO phenomenon, has been quite naturally and correctly connected with, in my opinion, correctly connected with an extraterrestrial origin of these other humanoid beings. But there has been in the last 40 years or so, there's been a growing body of evidence that these extraterrestrial origin beings have been coming here to the point where they have established bases here on our planet, high in the mountains, vastly removed from normal human civilization, and also deep under the sea. They have this capacity to potentially build bases under the ground and terrestrial terrain, but also under the sea floor, are able to hollow out huge areas and have basically bases under the sea and in the high mountains. And so that the craft that we may be seeing at any given time are actually based here on Earth. That they're not sort of daily having to make daily voyages from a distant star system and then come running around here and then go back there. That they actually settle here and have bases here. And that's become more and more prominent in the research that's being conducted by civilians primarily. And then there is, of course, this whole entire other realm of top secret military and intelligence community investigations that have been going on since at least Roswell in July of 1947. And this has become a target, if you will, on the part of those of us in the UFO citizen groups to try to find out what it is that our government agencies, the 6 military services, the 18 intelligence agencies, and the 32 United States Defense Department agencies and departments, what they know about this phenomenon, what its origins are, to what degree have they learned that bases exist here on our planet, in the high mountains and under the sea. You know, what do they know about this? Because we as citizens assume that now we know that many hundreds of billions of dollars, trillions of dollars probably by this time, have been spent in secret investigating these UFO craft and attempting to ascertain their origins, and attempting to almost certainly establish some form of secret communication with the occupants of these vehicles. And that has been the realm of the private citizens, UFO groups in the country. And that there are various of these that have been formed down through the years. NICAP was one of the earlier ones, the National Center for Investigating the Aerial Phenomenon. MUFON is another very well-known, the Mutual UFO Network, that has recruited literally thousands of people in their various congressional districts all around the country, and places even around the world, to go and investigate sightings that are reported of seeing the UFO vehicles, and especially those that may have landed and that people have seen or had any kind of engagement with the occupants. That this has been this entire endeavor of the UFO phenomenon, the UFO citizens groups that have been attempting to do both the extraction of the information from the federal government, but also undertaking their own de novo private investigations of this, and holding annual conferences together, you know, and that we've got more and more of these. You know, for a long time, you had the International UFO Congress that would meet in Laughlin, Nevada, and then it moved to Scottsdale, Arizona. There are a number of these. And of course, you have certain individuals that would become very prominent in these investigations. You have Dr. Stephen Greer, who had his disclosure project that I served as legal counsel for the disclosure project for 20 years. You have other people like Linda Moulton Howe, Richard Dolan. There are a number of prominent people, many of whom have passed away. Dr. John Mack and Bud Hopkins and Stanton Friedman, Bob O'Dean. There are a number of people that have passed away. But there's a new generation of investigators who are here and younger and are engaged in forming these citizen groups to consolidate whatever information is publicly available, and trying to find out more and more that we can in our own right, through our own means, our civilian means. But we're turning our focus on this information that's in the possession of our United States government, because in December of 2017, as Jim referred to at the opening statements, and I made reference to, the officials from inside the government, Chris Mellon, as I said, who was the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence under 2 separate administrations of different political parties, and Lue Elizondo, who headed up the top secret advanced aerospace threat identification program inside the Pentagon, have actually come forward from inside the government officials who have been studying this secretly, and acknowledged that this is going on, that there have in fact been these long-time in-depth investigations that have been going on within the military and within the intelligence communities, and that they've developed a very significant corpus of information about this. But they are still maintaining the dominant forces inside the Defense Department and the intelligence agencies are still maintaining falsely, fraudulently, I might say, that there's no there. There's no such thing. These sightings of UFOs were merely mistaken flocks of birds, or searchlights shining on the bottom of clouds, or swamp gas or ship. But there's been now revealed the fact that there was this systematic, conscious fabrication, lying, and cover-up that has been going on the part of our United States military and intelligence agencies. Richard Dolan was a PhD candidate in history at the University of Pennsylvania, did his thesis on the history of the UFO phenomenon, and has secured copies of the internal, previously secret documents, revealing the fact that there was this conscious program going on, completely unconstitutional, completely unlawful on the part of the intelligence communities, et cetera, to distort and deceive the information, the American public about this. And that's now been made public that that's been going on. So that we have at the present time these two tracks that are going on. There are citizen organizations, for example, the New Paradigm Institute is one of the more recent ones that have been engaged in the actual research and analysis of the publicly available data about the UFO phenomenon. And there are others that are still going forward on this. Dr. Stephen Greer's disclosure project, the investigative people like Linda Moulton Howe and Richard Dolan, individuals that have been engaged in this inquiry for decades, literally. There's a lot of us that are doing this, but we have, in light of the coming forward of Lue Elizondo and Chris Mellon back in 2017, coming from inside the national intelligence community, we now realize the civilians that are involved in a long time study of this issue are turning some significant degree of our attention on these people that are inside the American intelligence community and military, who have had direct contact with the various UFO vehicles that they've recovered a number of them. Now, there's indications that what they're on the brink of getting ready to reveal is that they have recovered a number of these vehicles that allegedly crashed, that somehow they malfunctioned and came down, and our people, kind of Johnny on the spot, happened to show up there and gather them up and bring them into our government custody, and have been investigating these craft, attempting to discern how they operate, what their propulsion system is, what mechanisms they have by means of which they're able to somehow defy what we understand to be the limitations and restrictions that are imposed upon any kind of material vehicle like that, that loosen them from the bonds of limited physics that we think obtain. So the bottom line is that this new endeavor on the part of our citizens to get at the information that is being held by the military pivots around this issue that Jim referred to of these whistleblowers. There are people inside the military services and inside the intelligence agencies and Defense Department agencies who have come into possession of firsthand and secondhand knowledge of the perimeters of this knowledge, how much of it there is, how long they've been at it, where it's stored, where are the craft, what level of progress have we made in trying to reverse engineer the craft. There are witnesses who know the answers to these questions, and they've indicated a willingness to come forward and talk specifically with the Intelligence Committee in the United States Senate, which is a comparatively recent phenomenon. We didn't even have an Intelligence Committee in the Senate until like 1990. Was the and the same thing in the House. We didn't have that, but they now have places to go, and they're coming forward to try to talk with the people in the House Oversight Committee on the House side of Representatives, and the Senate Intelligence Committee on the Senate side. And so we have approximately 40 of these people who are willing to talk, but they're not willing to violate their national security clearances. In order for them to have gotten into a physical position to be able to have direct access to the UFOs that have been retrieved, to do the research on the back engineering, and to ascertain what the nature of the occupants of these vehicles that have also been recovered, what their biological nature is, that all of that information is still being withheld by the Defense Department and intelligence communities, and they are threatening to punish any of the people who come forward and share that information, even with Congress. Even though under our Constitution, our Congress is charged with responsibility for formulating rules and regulations governing the activities of our military. People are not aware of this, but the fact of the matter is right here in Article 1, which is what creates the Congress of the United States. It says right here, it says let's see, what's the number of the section here? It's Article 1, Section 8. And it's like paragraph 6 or 7. It says the Congress of the United States shall have the authority to declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, and make rules concerning the capture on land or water. This is of any vehicles at all, and also to make all rules for the government and regulation of the land and naval forces. Okay, and this would obviously now include air, okay, because they didn't have air forces at the time. So the bottom line is that despite the fact that the Constitution clearly vests Congress with the authority to oversee and develop rules and regulations governing the United States military, and therefore our military intelligence services, and even our civilian intelligence services, these agencies have been not only concealing the information from Congress, but they've been lying to Congress. Actually, they've been committing perjury, criminal perjury, in asserting to the Congress that they don't have any information about UFOs, that they have no programs that are involved in studying UFOs. This was their position up until very recently, when Lue Elizondo and Chris Mellon came forward in December of 2017 and said, that isn't true. We do have such programs. And David Grush has testified on July 26th of last year, basically just virtually a year ago this week, testified in open hearings in front of the House Oversight Committee, asserting as a member of the top secret UFO task force in the Pentagon, he asserted that he has spoken with dozens of people in his official capacity, and has learned that, in fact, we are in possession of, our government is in possession of more than one non-human origin, extraterrestrial spacecraft, and the biological evidence establishing that the occupants of these vehicles are non-human. Okay, so we have reached a an important watershed here in history, where we've crossed this Rubicon, where the military forces and intelligence forces had, up until just recently, maintained this brick wall between what it is that they were doing and what they know about, and whatever it was that we civilians could figure out on our own, without the kind of resources and indeed training and types of instrumentality that the military and the intelligence communities have to ascertain this information. So this is where we are right now, and what Jim is asking me to relate to you is what the present status is of this effort on the part of our civilian organizations, more specifically the New Paradigm Institute, working with a couple of the major drafters of the legislation inside the Senate and inside the House of Representatives. You know, that what progress have we made up to this point? And as many of you that are the listeners here have known, is that we succeeded last year, right at this time last year, in getting the United States Senate to actually pass overwhelmingly, you know, like 90-10. Actually, it was 89-11. But so it's easy. It's 90% of all of the 100 United States senators, from all the way to the extreme right to the left of center and the middle of the political spectrum, have all voted to enact out of the Senate, at least, a 64-page bill that called for the establishment of an independent board that would be appointed by the president. And they have ordered all of the 6 military services and 18 intelligence agencies and 32 United States Defense Department agencies to gather together all of any and all information that in any way pertains to the UFO issue, or to the issue of the extraterrestrial intelligence that is apparently responsible for operating these UFO craft. All of that information has to be compiled and turned over by October 20th this year, you know, like 2 months from now, July, August, September, October, no, 3 months from now, you know, about 90 days from now, that this information has to be completely compiled and put into digital format, and design an index of all the information that is searchable and retrievable by computer, and make this available to the National Archives. Okay, so this is an absolute watershed in the form of legislation on the part of our United States Congress, for the United States Senate to have demanded that this information be coughed up and made available to the National Archives, and therefore would be available to the members of the Senate and House Intelligence Committee who have the adequate clearances to review this information. And it also, the Senate bill mandated that without some clearly articulable excuse for not making available to the public all of this information that was 25 years old or more, basically anything prior to the year 2000, basically, for simplicity's sake, had to be turned over to the American public and to the world. Now, this is a history-altering event that has taken place with the United States Senate setting up that particular set of protocols. And it went over to the House side. This, as you know, in a bicameral legislature that we have, both houses have to pass a bill in order to make it active as a law. And the House of Representatives, you know, sustained the mandate that all of these agencies have to gather together all of this information and compile it in the Senate mandated digital format with the searchable index, et cetera. That had to be done by October 20th. They've maintained that. Now, what they didn't do is they didn't mandate that they set up an independent board that would make the determinations as to how much and when was going to be released to the public. But the compilation of it and the codification of it and the making of it available to the National Archives still is the law right now. Okay, so that's what's happening right now. And the United States Senate, because the House of Representatives passed only 24 pages of the 64 pages that had been created by the United States Senate and passed by the Senate, the United States Senate has again this year reintroduced the same 64-page bill, saying that they're going to insist on the House of Representatives reconsidering the entire 64-page bill that would not only mandate the collection of all of this to maintain it as an outstanding order, but also to set up this independent board of review to be able to have the independent discretion to determine how much is going to be released to the public and when it's going to happen. So that is in process right now. As we speak, from here, our national headquarters for the New Paradigm Institute, that we have our Washington office here right on the hill, right across the street. If I could actually carry the little camera over and show you the Capitol building across the road here. This is where we're working from. And we have meetings regularly with the Senate and House members. We just had a lengthy meeting last Friday with the congressional staff person of one of the major congresspersons working on this in the House of Representatives. And so that we now know that the United States Senate is re-putting the 64-page bill that has these extraordinary provisions in it, are putting it to the House again. And that's going to be going over to them right now. That the Senate is just winding up its business. The House wrapped up its business temporarily for their August break last Friday. And the Senate is sending over to the House side now this 64-page bill again. And over on the House side, there have been a number of individual congresspersons who have proposed individual bills that address parts of the 64-page bill that the Senate has put in. But they have not put together any kind of comprehensive collection of all the different pieces of the 64-page bill that's been proposed by the Senate. But there have been pieces, for example, that the congressman from Long Beach, California, the Democratic Congressman Robert, not Gonzalez, but anyway, the fellow who's the congressperson from Long Beach, California, has put in a proposal that the House agree to set up this panel that the Senate wants. And Congressman Burchett from Tennessee has put in a bill mandating that all of this information be turned over to the public right away. Others have put in other partial bills. Some have put in bills, for example, to protect the whistleblowers. That's the kind of narrow topic that I want to talk about here, is that our New Paradigm Institute was asked by the House of Representatives, members there, to draft a bill providing much stronger protection to the people who want to be whistleblowers, to keep them from being retaliated against. One of the major reasons why they've not come public now is because they're afraid that even if they report the information to Congress in any kind of open session, they'll be retaliated against. They won't ever get any more promotions. They could actually be fired. They could be signed terrible jobs some way of punishing them. And some of them even fear for their own personal safety because they're familiar with the fact that the United States military and intelligence community has authorized the use of lethal force to protect this secret that they have about the UFOs and where they come from and what the non-human species are that are piloting these. They want to keep this all secret, and that they view themselves as authorized to utilize lethal force against anyone who violates his or her national security oath and threatens to reveal this information without permission. And so what we have done is we have drafted a 15-page bill to provide radically strengthened protections for the whistleblowers. For example, to give them a private legal cause of action against anyone inside the government that tries to retaliate against them for providing this information to Congress. And that they not only have, by our bill that we've now handed over to the House of Representatives and is presently being discussed by them, that we would also strip any defendant who is a government operations person who engages in this type of retaliatory action against a whistleblower, strip them of whatever degree of sovereign immunity that they have against being sued for activities that they undertook in their official capacity as government employees. So that's an extraordinarily important provision. And we've also included in that bill providing amnesty for any of the people who have decided that they're going to be providing information to Congress, and it is potentially revealing any information that might incriminate the witness, that witness may have engaged in some form of unlawful conduct, perjuring themselves, lying to Congress, defrauding the government by withholding these craft from the government and not allowing the technology to be made available to our people. That there are all kinds of different criminal activities that they've potentially been engaged in. And so the statute also provides for potential immunity to be granted by Congress in exchange for getting the information that they need to have in order to legislate properly. And the immunity can also be given by the Justice Department. If the Justice Department will engage in an investigation to try to find out what type of ongoing criminal activity has been undertaken by people involved in keeping these secrets. If the Justice Department deigns to undertake an investigation, they're authorized by this bill to grant immunity to certain witnesses in order to get the information that is needed. So this is a very far-reaching, forward-leaning bill. It's in the hands of the House of Representatives now. We have also given it to members of the Senate, the drafting people that are drafting the language for the Senate bill. So this is an important step that's now being taken to strengthen that. And the New Paradigm Institute has available to us a number of lawyers working with the Institute who are going to be providing, offering to provide right now, protection and legal representation for the people who wish to comply with the rules and regulations governing the revelation of this information to Congress. Now, there are some people who are willing to reveal the information to Congress, even if in fact they're not authorized to do this by their employers in the executive branch, either an intelligence community agency or a Defense Department agency, or for that matter, anyone who works for any of the private aerospace corporations that may have been put into possession of some of this equipment. to try to back engineer it, figure out how it runs. That these people are all covered by the new whistleblower protection statute that has been drafted by the New Paradigm Institute and has been put into the hands of the House and Senate. So that's where we are now. This what this does is covers a lot of the logistics that are involved. And I know that it's necessary to talk about some of those things and get everybody updated on what it is we're doing here. But you also need to think in terms of the tactical and strategic implications of what it is that's going on. This new study that has been published now on crypto-terrestrials, by Michael Masters, that I haven't gotten to read this yet. I'll read this later today. But what this is focusing upon is the fact that these extraterrestrial beings appear to have established bases here that I touched on early on in my comments, that they have bases high in the mountains, apparently inside some of the mountains, that they have this technology that is capable of hollowing out large spaces, for example, inside a mountain, beneath a mountain, beneath the ground, and also beneath the seas, under the seabed, and that they can come and go from these bases. And therefore, it raises the question that Dr. Garrison raised at the beginning of this, and appears to be part of the subject matter of the article that Michael Masters has written on crypto-terrestrials, that is really suggesting that it's a separate issue about whether or not they have the bases here and are operating at present from these bases. It raises the additional question of how long they have been here and how long have they had these bases operating on our planet. And that kind of opens into that entire area of ancient aliens. One of the most far-reaching and most popular television shows is Ancient Aliens, that talks about all of the different indications that are present on the surface of our planet and even under the oceans now, indicating that there may well have been pre-history civilizations here on our planet. And this is that whole thing with Graham Hancock, Fingerprints of the Gods. It's a whole separate category of information about the potential existence in prehistory of our, we view the kind of most recent history of like 5,000 to 6,000 years ago, back into ancient Mesopotamia, in the Sumerian culture and the Egyptian culture, and Babylonian culture. That's the sort of earliest recorded history that we have been operating on for eons. But that there's a growing body of evidence that indicates that there may have been very thoroughgoing and sophisticated technological human cultures that may have existed prior to what appears to have been some number of potential kind of earth cleansing catastrophic events, the so-called flood that is talked about in the Judeo-Christian Bible. That there are other accounts of this in Hindu literature and in Buddhist literature and indigenous writings, that they talk about this period where the earth was purportedly kind of virtually wiped clean of human beings during the existence of Homo sapien, and that they have now found more and more evidence of human civilizations, even primitive civilizations such as that Jim referred to earlier that are way over 11,000 years old. And some of them, some very primitive pieces of evidence, such as a 3 million-year-old perfectly formed wheel that sort of starts to knock into a cocked hat the kind of firm understandings that we had of history. Now, from my point of view, I set that into a particular category of information, looking at the question of whether or not our human species had more thoroughly modernized cultures prior to what we view as recorded history. That's a specific question that doesn't necessarily entail the need to have extraterrestrial knowledge at that point. But that, for example, that Dr. Garrison pointed out that there are civilizations that appear to be not only much older than what we view as, quote, recorded history, that had access to certain technologies that were able to move 40-ton blocks of stone, that not only had they been able to hew these out of mountains and set them together in formations that you can't put a piece of paper in between the two 40-ton blocks. You know, the precision with which they did this surpasses any type of technology that we may even have today. Again, to think clearly about that, that does not necessarily imply that the source of the technology that they had was extraterrestrial. What it does indicate is they may have had levels of technological development that vastly surpass anything that we imagined that could have existed that long ago. And it really raises this question of whether or not any of these more highly advanced human civilizations were actually effectively exterminated through some planet-wide catastrophic event of the worldwide flood, or any kind of the Earth being hit by an asteroid that we now opine wiped out the dinosaurs. But there may have been some event like that that wiped out an earlier human civilization and destroyed all virtual traces of it. But that's stuff that Graham Hancock and the other people write about prehistorical human societies. So that question of whether or not the origin of that technology was extraterrestrial is a completely separate and discrete question that we have to ask. But what we do know is that if in fact our present calculations are correct, and that there are star systems in our galaxy that have planets that are capable of sustaining life, generating life, indeed, gestating life, like our planet does, and that they have been in existence for 6 to 8 billion years longer than our star system and our planet, would indicate that there may well be civilizations that are older than our human civilization by billions of years, 6, 8 billion years more. And so that they could have accessed a form of technology, but very importantly, they could have come to our Earth as easily a billion years ago as they obviously are able to come now. If their civilization a billion years ago had developed a level of technology equal to what they apparently have access to now, to come and go from our planet and set up bases on our planet and under our planet and under our seafloors. If that's true, then it's possible that they could have come here as much as, a billion years ago, all right? But at least 300 million years ago, or a million years ago. And then they would have been here available to any pre-existent human civilization that we have only recently started to acquire any information about. Then it may account for some of these kind of examples of what appear to be levels of technology that were achieved in those prehistoric periods that we were completely unknowing about. Okay. But I want to, without, curbing the enthusiasm that everyone has here at Ubiquity about the relationship among all these things, I want to stay focused on the issue of extraterrestrial species coming and going from our planet and trying to understand what the impact will be on our present level of culture, our present 2024 level of civilization on our planet, our economic systems, our geopolitical structures that we have, our levels of knowledge of education in the fields of physics, philosophy, theology, biophysics. These are all things that whether we're the first of our human family to be an advanced civilization that is going to have the opportunity to have dialogue with this extraterrestrial civilization and get access to some of that more advanced information or not. But we have to deal with it now to ascertain one of the early issues that might be valuable to study is that if in fact we have any evidence, and I don't think we do yet at this point, except for certain mythologies, that if in fact there was one or more earlier stages of an advanced human civilization on our planet here, Homo sapiens, us, and they're having gotten access to high sophisticated levels of technology, such as those that enabled them to carve out 40-ton stones and move them over long distances. If in fact there's evidence indicating that our having acquired access to that kind of technology actually played a major role in the catastrophic event that terminated that particular civilization, that we need to know. Because that could be a lesson that we need to be extraordinarily guarded about here in our present state. Because if we misused a level of high technology to which we were given access in a previous incarnation a million years ago, then the dangers of our doing that again have to be recognized. And we have to take extraordinary measures to protect ourselves from doing that again, if we have any evidence of that. And as we're all quite familiar, I think, with the theories of Atlantis and Lemuria, that somehow those civilizations developed a very special high kind of access to a kind of a technology apparently that involved light and sound, and that they apparently, at least according to the mythology, began to misuse that technology to try to develop some kind of a weapons system to establish hegemony over others, and it may have destroyed those advanced cultures. Now that's a particular mythology that exists, the well-known Atlantis and Lemuria mythology. So there's some question about whether there is some historical truth to that or not. But as I say, that what we do know right now is that we are at the present being actively visited by an extraterrestrial civilization. They apparently have access to an extraordinarily sophisticated level of technology. They probably have some sort of commensurate advanced knowledge about physics in general, philosophy, theology, the origins of our universe, the boundaries of our universe, what the subtle present operational aspects of our cosmos are that we aren't aware of yet. These are absolutely extraordinarily important pieces of information that we need to be careful about. That we have to try to determine whether absorbing some of this information could jeopardize our human species in some way. Would having a relationship with a civilization and species that is vastly superior to us in its technology and philosophy and theology and other things threaten to dissolve away not only our human culture as a distinct culture, but possibly even our species, to be bred out, interbred with one or more other species from other star systems, to the point where our human species, Homo sapien, was dispersed, out among the other species of the universe. Now, one doesn't have to, jump out of a first-story window over this. I mean, other species evolve. We're going to evolve in our own right, even if we didn't have any interaction with any extraterrestrial civilization from some future level of development. That we all anticipate that we're going to evolve beyond Homo sapien into the next stage of human evolution, which may be, Homo divinus, developing some faculty like, for example, Crane Brinton talked about at Harvard, that we're evolving an additional sixth sense, a faculty that enables us to have extrasensory perception, that we can, have precognition, that we can do astral travel. These are things that are siddhas that have been recognized in other non-Christian, actually recognized in Christian religion as well. They call them the talents in the biblical passages, that people who can foresee the future, people who can telepathically communicate with people, etc. But the bottom line is that we are on the very brink here in our own particular age, whether this is unique or it's a repeat of some experiences that we'd encountered a million years ago, that we have no specific historical record of now. The bottom line is we're experiencing it now. We're having encounters with these beings. We know that they have superior technology. What we need to do is exercise both exuberance in the face of getting access to this information, but at the same time exercise care that we don't misuse the information, we don't misuse the technology, and that we certainly don't try to use the technology to develop some sophisticated weapon system, which appears to be the case of what the military industrial and intelligence complex is doing right now. I've mentioned it before, there's an old Sufi saying, when a pickpocket meets a saint, all he sees are his pockets. And that if you have a military state, a national security state that has the access to resources, to have the technology to be able to discern the existence of these craft coming and going from our planet, in that they utilize their technological advances to seize the UFOs and try to back engineer them, or reverse engineer them to make a new platform for the delivery of nuclear weapons against Russia or China, it's potentially going the way that some previous civilization may have done, of eliminating themselves, engaging in some catastrophic event that actually eliminated their entire prior civilization. We need to be extraordinarily careful about this. And the New Paradigm Institute is engaged in that process, is engaged in reflecting upon all of the different repercussions of this, and at the same time trying to assist those who are wanting to bring the information forward, at least to our intelligence committees in our Congress, who are our elected representatives, so they can exercise proper oversight over this. And the New Paradigm Institute is at the center of this here in Washington, D.C. And we're all asking your help to volunteer. As one of the volunteers, we have over 550 volunteers now, and we're dividing the volunteers into legal groups, scientific groups, academic groups, different people who are good at high tech communications, that we're coordinating the volunteers to work with us. And we need your assistance. And we're obviously recommending that people take the courses that are being jointly offered by the New Paradigm Institute and Ubiquity University. Many of you are. And that's what the New Paradigm Institute is doing. So we're doing everything from the logistical work on protecting the whistleblowers, legally representing whistleblowers, and drafting legislation to give further protections to them, all the way up to trying to determine what the new paradigm is that is going to enable us to safely and responsibly absorb this information that they have available and undertake the kind of careful adjustment of our economic and geopolitical structures and our religious structures and our academic structures on our planet to process this influx of information in a way that is sound and responsible for all of our people and for the extraterrestrial civilization that is here. That we may have to develop some sort of a set of protocols, we will, for being able to have them be here on our planet as a separate species, a sentient, intelligent, well-developed species to be integrated in our human culture, or to some extent, us to be to integrate into their larger culture, which exists in our galaxy. So this is an extraordinary period that we're in, and we're delighted that that there are 85 of you who are here today to pay attention to this kind of a conversation and to be participating with us and giving us your support for the New Paradigm Institute. And I'm appreciative of your help, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. We have another 15 minutes or so.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you very much. Let's see, there's a lot of questions. One question that I think would be worth commenting on came from Kim Kerrigan about, she says, although UAP disclosure is extremely important, what is the end game? Mm-hmm. What is the expected impact while we continue to allow the climate engineering and the weaponization of the weather and various other highly dangerous human activities? So speak to us for a moment about how you conceive the end game. How does this information alter or transform the devastating way that humans are interacting with each other in the larger planetary ecology?
Well, I think that this, the activities that we all witness are certain elements of our human family engaging in really requires a dramatic intervention. It's like intervening with a person who is radically addicted to some drug, whether it's alcohol or cocaine or heroin, or so, that our culture, certain elements in our culture are addicted to violence. They're addicted to repression in a desire to assert dominance in physical dominion over others for their own comparative advantage. And we have yet to figure out how to rein them in adequately. They're so forward-leaning in affecting the structures of our geopolitical structures and our economic and academic structures that they defend themselves, they guard themselves against intervention. And so that what we're hoping is that getting access to some of the additional information that this extraterrestrial civilization may be able to help provide to us is that those of us who are working on behalf of peace and love and harmony in cooperation, will be able to figure out a better way, a more effective way of persuading the individuals who are addicted to this type of violence and dominion to basically get an AA course or some, to develop some sort of a mechanism out of which the people can elevate themselves beyond this. Or also we're going to have to figure out how to take steps if they don't voluntarily agree to come to, that we're going to have to take them into custody and bring them to a rehabilitation place, I mean, it sounds a little ominous, but I mean, it's certainly less ominous than what they're presenting to the world, threatening to blow the whole world up, on behalf of their own personal advantage. So that we're going to have to talk with the extraterrestrial civilization, for example, to say, look at, how did you guys deal with this? Did you have this same problem, in your civilization? Has your civilization wiped itself out a number of times in the past through your misuse of your technology and putting it into the hands of people who wanted to use it for dominance in war? How did you handle that? I mean, it sounds like science fiction, but the bottom line is that we have an opportunity here to get access to extraordinary dimensions of information and truth that we've never had any access to in the past, and hopefully it can help and to bring about an intervention. And we want this intervention to be amicable and friendly and positive and peaceful, to the extent to which we can. So we're hoping that this information is going to be extremely helpful in the area of spirituality and the biophysics of our human body that can elevate our consciousness into a higher and more unistic perception of reality.
Then a final question has to do with your understanding. I mean, you've been at this now since the late 1970s with the Carter administration, yes, and so forth and so on. And we hear a lot about extraterrestrials, crypto-terrestrials, ultra-terrestrials, non-human intelligences, multi-dimension, coming from different star systems. Where do you personally come out in terms of where you're at right now in understanding this phenomenon? Do you think it's basically possibly all of the above? Are you orienting yourself to one understanding or one perception about this phenomenon? How do you, Danny Sheehan, come out on this?
Well, one of the things that I've discovered, Jim, in over 50 years of conducting major investigations, whether it's investigating the content of the Pentagon Papers that we participated in getting made public, and finding out about what kind of drug smuggling they were doing in Southeast Asia, what kind of assassination programs they had, et cetera, or doing the Karen Silkwood case, investigating who it was that killed Karen Silkwood and what was it she discovered that got her killed. But what I've discovered is that there often are a number of factors that collide, and it causes some confusion. It's like like 4 different cars coming into an intersection, and one of them is trying to run the yellow light to get through it as fast as they can. Another one's trying to jump the red light, getting ready to go. And another person is coming in and drops something on the floor and is bending down to pick something up and not paying attention. There are a number of factors that go in together. And it turns out that you can get attached to one specific theory of what really was the proximate causation of what happened here. But in fact, there are a number of factors that play into it. And in this particular case, I know that there are different theories about the origin of these beings. I think that the simplest, they call Occam's razor, everybody knows about, is, the simplest explanation for things is often the correct explanation. And it's perfectly clear now that the scientific community has begrudgingly come to acknowledge that other planets exist in the universe other than those in our solar system, because now they've been able to see them, and kind of weigh them and measure them and do that. so that now it's dropped into their radical materialist reductionist worldview. And so that they now know the planets exist, and that they realize that they've actually started doing experiments now, testing the boundaries of faster than light travel. They've discovered the tachyon particle that apparently goes faster than the speed of light, even though it has some mass to it. That there are dimensions that are starting to unfold right now that cause us to be optimistic that we can find out more and more about what's going on. But the bottom line is that the simplest basic explanation for this is that, yes, other star systems exist in our galaxy. They have planets. They've existed for billions of years, longer than we have. We're right on the door now, knocking on the door of interplanetary space travel. They've probably conquered that, hundreds and thousands of years ago. And so that the likelihood is that the UFO vehicles, at least one major central aspect of the UFO vehicles, is that they're extraterrestrial, just as our human family has suspected, and that they're piloted by knowing, intelligent beings. There's obviously a civilization from which they come, with whom they're in direct contact, and kind of coordinating what their agenda is here. And we can start to make some kind of assumptions about what their kind of alternative agendas might be. They appear to be peaceful, at least at this stage. That doesn't mean that they don't have some longer range game plan to take resources from our planet, that we will have to enter into some sort of commercial arrangements with them to, if there's some resources that we have that perhaps we don't even use, that we don't know the value of, that they might find very valuable, that we can negotiate with them. But this is the simplest explanation, but it's complicated by a number of other factors. For example, we know from a scientific point of view now that the time itself is the fourth dimension of our space-time continuum, and that the mode of transport that they have for coming from a distant star system to here may in fact move outside of the space-time continuum. So they may actually distort time in some really important way that we aren't yet familiar with. And it gives one the impression that they're coming from some future point in time. And people start to speculate that, well, maybe they are us, that we have actually, 100 years from now, we've actually gone to another planet and had a civilization, and we're coming back now to warn our people about a potential thermonuclear war. There are different theories, but you have to take these things one step at a time. And I learned this in evidence at Harvard Law School. If you're faced with a complex set of data, you have to kind of carefully go through the analysis to put them into logical categories, start figuring out how they relate to each other, how they might be a source of confusion. For example, I find that, that concentrating on leprechauns and fairies, and what they call elementals here on our planet, Bigfoot, and other things like that. Those are entitled to consideration, but they need to be kept in a certain category,
Right.
That is different than just a simple explanation that extraterrestrial intelligence is coming and going from here. And it may present itself in ways that we have historically perceived to be, quote, spiritual. But the entire category of spirituality in our human family is obviously now being challenged by the fact that there are metaphysical dimensions of reality that are being discovered with quantum physics, in biophysics now, that really touch upon many of the features that have been historically categorized as spiritual. And yet they're functions of the human body. They're functions of our evolution. They're functions of qualities and capacities that our human species has that have been repressed, by religious institutions that want to exercise more control and dominion over the people, and so that they reserve for themselves the priesthood, the access to these other charisms. And so that whole thing is potentially becoming conflated with qualities that are displayed by the extraterrestrial beings who may just be a billion years or so more physically advanced than we are. And they may have developed a number of these charisms, and we could mistakenly believe that they're like angels, or things that we have projected into the future of our capacities that we attribute to angels. So the New Paradigm Institute is hard at work in separating out all the different pieces of data and information, and figuring out what the alternative natural categories into which they fall, so that we can assemble these things in a way that are going to be the most productive and helpful for us all to figure this out as a human family. And that we want people to participate in this process. We want people to volunteer. We want to have discussion groups. In each of the 435 congressional districts, we have Citizens for Disclosure that we're going to be organizing and coordinating. We have courses that we're going to be teaching about the basics that are going to help people make these kind of discernments. This is an extraordinarily exciting time, and that we're here to help work with everybody. We're all working on this together. Some of us have designed our life so that we can spend more time at it than some other people might be able to. And so we can be helpful for people. But they should contact us at newparadigminstitute.org, newparadigminstitute.org. We've got this brand new major website that can respond to your needs, provide information to you, help you organize Citizens for Disclosure groups in your own local community. We've got one group, I think it's in Florida, that have actually organized an assembly at their local high school. They've actually gotten the principal of the high school to agree to have a high school assembly, so that we can actually present to the young students what's happening in this entire area. And we're going to do that in churches and synagogues and temples, in Kiwanis clubs, American Legion posts. We're going to get people participating in these discussions and funneling all this information that will come flowing into the New Paradigm Institute, so we can be a repository of this type of information and share it with people. So that's what we're doing at the New Paradigm Institute. I guess that's the news from Lake Wobegon for this week from the nation's capital.
Thank you so much, Danny. Appreciate your experience, your wisdom, and your inspiring vision as always. So that'll do it for us for today, everyone. You're welcome to join the after chat. You'll see the link in the chat box. You received it in your Zoom reminder for today, and then we'll see you all again tomorrow for our next session on Humanity Rising. Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.
Thank you, gang. We'll see you later.